What's the good word, everybody? It's your boy DKB here. I've already seen a couple of y'all in the chat. Glad to have you. Danger, my guy, welcome in. We'll see if we can land us a Sadiq for this draft. I don't know how it'll play out. I've seen PFF acting crazier than normal with some of the picks coming out. Chris, my guy, what's going on? Yeah, we're gonna have some fun today, right? We have a 2-round mock draft we're going to get to. I'm setting up some things in the background right now, but we are going to try to make some waves here, right? And I don't want to draft anybody just for the sake of saying that we're drafting a different name and having that debate. But I legitimately think some of what may happen today, um, there's strong logical reasoning behind it. So let's get our PFF stuff going. Tyson, welcome in. Greg, my guy, welcome in. Earl, appreciate you guys coming through and showing up. I'll probably share a join link pretty soon here too, once we actually get into the picks and the conversations. And feel free to jump on, debate, yell, scream, tell me why I'm an idiot, or if we're in full agreement or we're moving in lockstep too, then we can get that done. But let's start getting to this, right? Okay, here we go. So we, of course, are rocking with our Jets. We are on a 2-rounder right now. And I'll make this relatively slow just because I like being able to kind of talk through and see what's happening with some of these other draft picks too. All right, so just so we're aware, we have 4 picks at 2 and 16 in the first round, 33, which is the first pick in the second, and 44 in the second. I don't know if I'm gonna open things up to trades yet, right? Maybe we have some of those conversations and we try to factor in how that makes sense because I do want to do a mock draft at some point where we are looking to kind of maneuver around. Um, but I'm also I don't know, a classic man in the sense that I like the idea of just kind of staying pat to a certain degree and making the hard picks when necessary for wherever we happen to be at, right? Who is our quarterback right now? Is probably Brady Cook. Brady Justin Fields expect to be released. We don't really have anybody else under contract other than Brady Cook. Tyrod Taylor still has the chance to go out there and get some things to figure out for himself, right? And we have all the debates around Kyler Murray and Jacoby Brissett and what I shared from today with your Tyson Bagents and your Jared Stidhams and stuff of the world. So we'll see. I think free agency could honestly be a little bit more intriguing than expected because you do have many of these cast off veteran quarterbacks, if you will, that their team is going to be on the hook for the money. So you can go and pick up, a Kirk Cousins, a Kyler Murray for, $2 million or less. And that's worth a gamble, right? To bring in someone that has proven production. And then you try to, add in the pieces to circumvent around that. But Tyson, I throw a 4th for Jacoby. Yeah, I think that I talked about it this morning, that potential upgrade in the compensatory pick could be in consideration. I think in the video, from what I recall, I mentioned that they're willing to take a 5th or 6th for him. So the deal for us would be even sweeter than that. But I do think it makes a ton of sense if you want to pursue somebody to try to go down that path. Ty or Allar? Ty Simpson or Drew Allar? What would we do? I think Ty Simpson is too rich for our blood. We'll see what happens in the draft, right? I'm sure we'll expand on this conversation, but I like the idea of a day 3 pick because they're not going to have the pressure and the expectations around we have to get them on the field, right? Especially if you do go and invest these resources into getting a veteran here. But let's kick things off and start seeing what we have happening. Raiders, of course, are going to go with Fernando Mendoza. Let's just look at the trades here and kind of talk through what could happen. I think I am going to lean towards no trade. Um, but let's see. The Dallas. Oh, this is one of the simulators where they don't tell you what the actual pick trades are, right? Yeah, so they say all of these teams are interested, but then we essentially build and put together our own package. Yeah, I don't like the idea of that, but I forget how this works for them. What is the C supposed to represent? Are these all the picks that we would throw in as part of this trade? So what we would take, that can't be right because then we're not getting offered like a first at all or anything. Yeah, I think we're good on the trades for now. But it is interesting to at least see. So who are the teams? So in PFF's mind, the interested teams are the Cowboys, Steelers, Chargers, Bears, Broncos, Patriots, and then Seahawks trading up from the second, Raiders from the second, Packers from the second. So at least in their minds, the farthest back that we could drop is the 12th, which means the Cowboys would essentially be giving us a full another draft class in between whatever picks they offer up now and whatever they offer up, I guess, in 2027, which I think there's also a realistic world where you can say the Jets could walk into 2027 with 4 first rounders. Kyler would look good in an A's uniform. I don't like him at all. Yeah, I know. I think it depends on what exactly is happening with the character issues, right? Now, if he's a child in a semi-adult body, um, then I say absolutely not, right? The disaster that can happen from him poisoning the locker room is worse than whatever we can get with his production. But if it's more so he was just immature and you've been seeing him get better, and the guys that are souring him are guys that haven't experienced what he's like now as a player or something like that, maybe you can roll the dice there because what he does give you on the field kind of offsets that whole situation. But I feel like it's probably best to just avoid it to begin with, right? I also am going to drop this link in here because we're going to talk through these picks here pretty shortly and where my mind frame is. Feel free to join and let's get into it. But pass on Ty Simpson, also known as Zach Wilson, and Trey Lance 2.0 with only 15 starts. Yeah. Yeah, like I can't knock it. I like the appeal that this is a guy that's stuck in a program and found a way to get on the field and do well with the shot that he actually had for the season. But the appeal for me is really the background stuff. The dad that's a coach growing up in football. He's going to handle all the things, do all the things, say all the things in the right way, and he at least has enough of the tangibles to where you say we could develop this guy into something. Ron, was good, my guy? All right, let's talk about it. So obviously, Arvell Reese is the odds-on favorite to become our guy right now, and nothing in my mind really discourages me from taking him. Right, 6'4". I think he's actually more of 250. Right, that's the combine stuff that came in. Danger was good, my guy. Does that mean you're coming on? It might just be a wave. I know Danger's usually hard at work. But Arvell Reese, 6'4", 250, right? The essential go-to with him is that he is going to be kind of like a hybrid type dude at the next level. So more of an edge player, but then you can put him out in space when you want to go maybe more into like an even front. And I don't know what that looks like, right? You're talking more about trying to find someone like a Ruben Bain for the easy example to sub in, and then Arvell Reese, falls back. But 30 games over the last 2 years, played a decent level. I think it's really like a 1 year breakout type situation thing with Arvell Reese, right? And it's not like the breakout was so it's not like a Joe Burrow type experience at like the edge level, right? I think people are just saying if you look at the athleticism, if you look at what happened when he kind of finally all put it together in 2025, and then you look at the projections out there about the Micah Parsons comps and stuff like that, then obviously it makes a ton of sense why people want to jump at him. But I'm looking at this kind of in stages. Like, who is he technically as a player right now? If we comped him to the NFL, I don't think you would say Micah Parsons, right? The background and the context is maybe similar enough, but he's probably more of like a Chop Robinson type person, right? So then you say, okay, if we're getting Chop Robinson right now, is that worth the number 2 overall pick? Assuming he develops on the path that we have for him, right? Then what does that look like by the time his rookie contract is done? Are we actually getting a Michael Parsons level guy, or what's the variation of kind of production and player that we're really looking at here? And that's where you can kind of lose me right now, right? Because I think there are players that are better at their positions right now, day one going into the league, than what Arvell Reese would be at his. And the fact that he is kind of this hybrid guy and they've used him all over the place. I mean, look at it. He's on the line. He's coming out of the slot. Hell, they have him at corner. He's going into the box. So he's not a guy that's purely experienced and having to play against a lot of these dudes with his hand in the dirt and stuff like that as well. So I think he almost benefits more so from kind of being in space and then being able to kind of work up front and stuff. I still think he can do everything at a pretty good level, but he's not this lock to me that I hear everybody else is saying. Now, do I have a lock? Not really, right? I think Jeremiah Love is out of the discussion for us, and that would be regardless of whether we kept a Breece Hall or not. The conversation for me is really between 3 people, and I'll tell you why. It's Arvell Reese for sure. We're talking about it now. It's Sonny Styles, and the conversation around Sonny Styles is because I do think he's more effective as a player. I think walking into the door of the NFL, he's potentially a top 12 linebacker right now. That's before getting snaps. That's before adjusting to the scheme. That's before any of that kind of stuff happens. And so if you look at him, then what is his comps, right? Walking through the door, what does he look like? And in the upper tier of that, if Michael Parsons is Arvell Reese's kind of prime territory, then I think for Sonny Styles, you can't rule out that you're talking about a Luke Kuechly, you're talking about like a Jack Ham, you're talking about a Fred Warner level person with someone like Sonny Styles. And to me, if I'm getting something closer to being able to hit that territory right now, I think I opt towards that. The real perspective behind that is if Sonny Styles is a top 12 guy going into the league right now, let's say Arvell Reese, maybe similar territory, right? Top 15 at his position, maybe in year 1. I have 3 picks next year in 2027. Is it more likely that I can find another edge that'll be on par with Arvell Reese, or a better prospect? Maybe you get a Myles Garrett type person that you can pick. Or is it more likely that I have another Sonny Styles level guy? Now, there's going to be drawbacks, right? Obviously, you look at the linebacker class, and we have a bunch of guys that I would feel really, really good about. I love me Sonny Styles. I definitely love Jacob Rodriguez. I'm kind of on the Jake Golday train right now. I think there's other guys that bring the athleticism that you could feel good about, like the Eli Stowers, but the Anthony Hill Juniors of the world, Torian York, doesn't bring the size profile that you love, but I think he's kind of a monster. Harold Perkins is a name that I've heard that's been kind of growing on people. So like that piece you can kind of argue me out of. But I also think you need a bigger revamp of the linebacker room than what you need on the defensive line in theory. Ruben Bain, I love the guy from everything I've seen. I think I would be willing to overlook any of these arm issues that would cause other people concern or hesitancy in drafting him at number two. I think he's going to have a pretty long career in the NFL where as long as as long as he stays as locked in and focused and fiery as what you're seeing current day, looking at the interviews, right? He talked about the difference between him and everybody else in this class is that the way he just lives life in general is like a monster. I think you do that 100%, right? 10 out of 10. He's also going to bring the size profile that you need to see, right? The 6'3", and I think he was closer to 290 from the combine details. This is someone where you look at, it's a much clearer picture, right? Arvell Reese, you can kind of say, okay, we want to put him on the edge more. Will he actually be able to survive that much in year one to where you don't end up kind of souring on his prospects early or thinking the learning curve is too big? Ruben Bain, I think, is a plug and play guy on the defensive line. You essentially end up having Jawan Briggs, Tavondre Sweat, Ruben Bain. When you want to go into those even or odd fronts, you can kick a Ruben Bain inside. You can allow Tavondre Sweat to, as more of the two down guy, to take a break, plug in Jawan. You have Will out on the edge. You have someone like a Sonny Styles that can come up, or whoever else we might look to add as like an outside linebacker or a designated pass rusher. And the scheme fit just looks like a more definitive and easier match to me with someone like a Ruben Bain over someone like an Arvell Reese. And then David Bailey is really the only guy I'm seriously considering here. Or he's the guy that I would exclude, from seriously considering here. David Bailey, I think, is probably, I don't want to say clearly the best pass rusher here, but I think it's getting towards that kind of conversation, right? Obviously, explosive year. We've seen the athletic profile, everything that we love with him. But like I talked about in the breakdown video for him, this is basically our version of Will McDonald. He's a better Will McDonald, but Bailey is basically Will McDonald for us. Do you want to reset the clock? Do it 100%. I'd love it, right? But then that means you almost need to trade Will McDonald. See what you can get right now. And if we haven't traded him in, let's say, the next 30 days, we're 49, 50 days out from the draft. If you haven't traded him in the next 30 days, then the thought process doesn't make sense to me. Why get two guys playing essentially the same position that are going to be the same liability in the run game, and maybe Bailey ends up being the better pass rusher from Will McDonald? But again, it's not a guarantee for as much as anybody may love him. Will McDonald's at least proven in that regard. And two, like at some point you got to start committing to somebody, right? I know there's still holdovers from the draft. I know nobody's really safe outside of a Garrett Wilson right now, but like, don't reset the clock for the same caliber of player that's just going to do the one thing that they do well slightly better. I don't know if that quite makes sense in the way I'm kind of phrasing it, but you're resetting the clock in hopes that a guy that Bailey gives you the better production over the same, what's Will McDonald going into year 4? So the same 4-year sample size. And I think he could achieve that. But if you get the same kind of run defense liability out of him, I don't think that is maximizing, the roster at this point. Let's see. Taylor Green in the 4th round. I don't know when I'm going to do a 7-round mock, but I'm getting there where Taylor Green is probably going to be the guy that I try to find some way to get when I start getting into there. See, my guy's in the office. For anybody that doesn't know, my man has a man crush on Kenyon Sadiq. And I think there's definitely a world where that makes a ton of sense. Eli Stowers is the right move at 16. I think he'd rip his hair out. Timothy, appreciate it, my guy. I do have memberships right now in the community. Once I can kind of start building that up, the plan is definitely to give you guys a closer look into the inside world of kind of what happens when I'm attempting to review and break down prospects and all that kind of stuff. So there's a vision there, but I appreciate it, my guy. It's much respect. Danger, you know more than anybody. This definitely was not needed, but appreciate you, boss. By the way, quick plug. Danger, Danger Zone is. I've been on his channel. He's been on my channel a couple of times. I don't think in an official capacity. So I definitely need to change that. But he's been on live streams with me. We've talked through some processes and stuff before. Late night, when especially when we're in the dregs of the season and you need something to talk about, you need the excitement, you need a critical thinker in the Jets universe. You got to go check out my guy Danger, Elite Channel. He co-pilots over there as well, in addition to soloing when he needs to. But he gets a lot of great guests. He knows his stuff. I think he has more thought-provoking questions that I see actually posed out there than many others in the Jet content space, myself included. So feel free to check him out as well. I just tapped in with him like 2 weeks ago. I'm gonna figure out a way to get with my guy on a more consistent basis. So to get back to the draft here, right? If you haven't picked up on this, my thought process is that I am leaning towards Sonny Styles. Now, here's why. You look at the linebacker crew, and there's guys that you can get excited about later on and stuff like that, but Sonny Styles' impact is going to be instant. I think at 16, I'm not as willing to reach on a linebacker, right? Which would probably be a CJ Allen or Jacob Rodriguez. If I didn't go Sonny here, I don't think he makes it to 16. Also, I don't think that either CJ Allen or Jacob Rodriguez would technically be there. They might be there in this mock, but I'm trying to also realistically try to figure out what that would look like. And I don't think that's going to be the case. Yeah, no doubt, my guy. So Sonny Styles is the process that I'm thinking, right? When I look at the edge group, I say, okay, I'm going to miss out on Bain. I'm going to miss out on Bailey, who I don't technically want anyways, right? I just don't think it's good roster construction. I'm going to miss out on these two guys, but then Akeem Mesidor, athletic freak, paired up with Bain. He's older, which is going to be the knock on him, but he's also the guy that's probably a better prospect day one to a certain degree, depending on what you're looking for out of the player. And so you can talk me into, if he's there at 16, that's done. You can also tell me when I'm there in the second round, there's Zion Young that I could feel really good about, right? He's going to bring the size, the size, speed, height profile, right? I have TJ Parker, a little bit more of a question mark. I have Cassius Howe. I feel better that the gap between Arvell Reese and like the next six guys isn't as crazy as the gap between Sonny Styles and like the next 3 or 4 guys. And again, I think the linebacker room needs much more of a revamp than what we need on the line. But ultimately, if I was trying to sell you on why Sonny Styles would be the guy here, one, you look at the combine, literally historically elite, right? The number one linebacker in all of college football since they've been evaluating in 1999. I don't care about the combine that much, right? I just know that people are going to love the numbers and that stuff. 6'5", 243. So he's quite literally bringing you like the Tremaine Edmonds, is it Jack Conklin I'm thinking of with the Lions, but he's bringing you that type of build, right? So this is a guy that can go and bang down in the trenches with the big guys. He's someone that can hawk you down when you want to talk about the sideline to sideline speed. He obviously has the elite IQ in order to be the green dot wearer. We've heard Aaron Glenn talk about how important his Mike linebacker relationship is. So think about the Alex Anzalone type situation there. You don't have to necessarily overspend to get him if you're committed to Sonny Styles, and he's going to be the guy that you can work with and groom from day one. All of that's really, really alluring to me. But Sonny Styles, not only did I like Connor Rogers directly comped him to potentially being a Fred Warner level prospect, when it's kind of all said and done, once he officially hits the field. Two, I've heard people talk about his leadership in the way that, And I think this actually also came from Connor Rogers from his time over the combine, that people look at him as like a CEO of a Fortune 500 company by the time he decides his football career is done. I want all of the leadership traits. I want all of the athletic traits that he's bringing, and I want all of the consistent and elite production that he's been bringing as a linebacker here. And I also still think you get a bit of that Arvell Reese allure, where again, you could technically go and put him out there as a designated pass rusher. You can use him as a QB spy. I think his vision is more clear and defined, and he's going to give you a total package that, regardless of the cap and where it puts him at as a rookie day one and compared to the rest of the league, you will never look back and say like, dang, I kind of wish maybe, we went somewhere else. I think you'll be well satisfied. So my pick here is going to be Sonny Styles. I'm going to secure the middle of the field. I'm going to get me a designated dog and leader on that defense for Aaron Glenn. And even if Aaron Glenn doesn't survive, to know that you have a Sonny Styles running things for you, chef's kiss, right? I think this is the caliber of player that you need, as kind of that CJ Mosley level player that can make sure the defense will always not only be a player-led, accountability-led team, but one that's going to produce, or it's going, or if we're failing, it's going to be over his dead body, essentially. At 16, Cooper, Thieneman, McCoy, who you taking? Are you talking about Omar Cooper? Obviously, Dylan Thieneman, I know, and McCoy, Jermod McCoy. You're talking about the cornerback. I don't know what I would have done there. Omar Cooper, I think that's too high. Thieneman, I think, has been getting more hype. I just saw the NFSLE 2-round mock, and I think they took him like 10th overall. Who's at 10? Yeah, to the Bengals. So yeah, I don't know. I think in that scenario, Jermod McCoy will probably make the most sense. If you feel like Brandon Stevens stays playing at the same level we got to see, and will either reduce the touchdowns allowed or will improve the takeaway rate, and that you have a belief in Azareye'h Thomas, like the trio of Brandon Stevens, Azareye'h Thomas, and who was the slot guy from the Titans that we picked up again? Hold on, let me think. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. I think that trio is at the very least pretty solid, and at the best, I think they could be really, really good. So I probably would have rolled with Jermod McCoy, because you give him the chance to take his rehabilitation at his own pace. And when he comes in, he probably immediately replaces an Azareye'h, just because his athletic profile is better. And if he is the guy in man coverage we thought he was, then that should be a win. And then Azareye'h Thomas, again, becomes your new who was the old Brandon Eccles? He becomes your new Brandon Eccles. The Thieneman at 12, that's the same. Yeah, I don't know, but I've been seeing him rise pretty consistently lately. I think this is always like post-combine stuff, right? It gets really crazy. So let's take a look. Jeremiah Love went in the 3rd to the Cardinals. I think with LaFleur being there now, it just makes sense you try to give him whatever elite pieces you can to try to help out. Ruben Bain not making it past Robert Saleh doesn't surprise me that much, but you also take a look at it and think like, he's already had the experience of Will McDonald, and if people think that Bailey is better, why wouldn't he have gone that route? But I don't know, right? I don't care that much. I'm just kind of high level wise working it through. Maui Goa going to the Giants makes sense with Harbaugh there. Make sure you secure the trenches. Arvell Reese. See, and this is the other piece, right? And I kind of like this exercise of thinking through the mock draft stuff for our Jet selected picks. If Arvell Reese is the guy that everybody else thinks it is, then why wouldn't he immediately have gone to even Robert Saleh with the Titans, right? Obviously, there's some discussion points then for why he would be such a fit for us and not necessarily for anybody within like the top five. Caleb Downs, he falls a bit if you believe he is that top one or two player in this draft. Commanders definitely needed some help on defense. They have some turnover with their safeties. I think they snatched Cam Curl from us last year, which is a guy that I really wanted. So they get a significant replacement there. Mansour Delane kind of surprises me going that high. Carnell Tate, I think, still makes a ton of sense for them. They need to really revamp that wide receiver room with the Chiefs. And maybe they still go back to the well of having like a Tyreek Hill and stuff too. But David Bailey to the Bengals. Fano, I think that's potentially a little high to the Dolphins, but they need trench help. The Eneman, obviously we're kind of talking about it via chat and stuff, but significantly high, right? I don't know when people started thinking he was much closer to Caleb Downs than to, I don't know, AJ Halsey, for example, but we'll see. At the very least, that just means that more potential great players drop to us. Kenyon Sadiq ends up not being an option. Sorry, Danger. I would have seriously considered it if he was there at 16, but it looks like the Rams actually traded up to even make it happen. So they are fully on the they're fully on the F them picks train, right? And I think PFF probably hasn't updated the trade from today or yesterday. Mekhi Lemon goes next to the Ravens. They essentially get them another like Zay Flowers-esque player. And then let's just call him Oli to the Bucks, who needs trench play help as well. Okay, so what are we looking at now, right? Monroe Freeling is a tackle riser. We don't need to worry about that. Jermod McCoy could be the next available best player to us, but this will be a conversation around how many games are we expecting him to play in year one. I know his rehab, he says, is going according to plan, but then he didn't really do any combine stuff. So we'll see if the pro day reveals anything. Then we get into the defensive line again. Now, when I look at the Jets depth chart, we are looking at right now on the interior anyways, at least a combination of Jawan Briggs, Harrison Phillips, and then it's like Peyton Page. Obviously, Mozzie Smith is still there from the prior trade, but that's basically it. So the question becomes, do we need to reinforce the defensive line more? If it is more of a 3-4, then I think having Jawan Briggs and T'Vondre Sweat makes a ton of sense. If you end up still utilizing more like 4-3 fronts and really just kind of being more multiple or presenting that way, then it makes sense that you probably want to make sure that you're going 3 deep. But I also don't know if you need to do that here, right? I think somebody falls to that top of the second round for us. Jordan, CJ Allen, obviously we took Sonny already, so I don't think we need to have that conversation again, at least for a little bit. Although you could also sell me on just probably not. You couldn't sell me on it, but I would have the conversation around what does it look like if you had a Sonny Styles and a CJ Allen or somebody like that, both manning the field. But again, I don't think that would be great resource management. But it'd be a hell of a lot of fun for like the first couple years. Jordan Tyson is a injury concern that scares the mess out of me. So I don't know if I am the team that wants to risk bringing him in. So then we get into where I was at right now. Akeem Mesidor, I think, would be a great option. He's going to bring more of that same weight profile that you're getting with Ruben Bain. You can make the argument that he performed more consistently or better, but again, he's coming in at age 25, walking into the season, and is that too much of a concern for somebody when by the time we need to pay him again, he's going to be a 30-year-old, borderline 30-year-old, right? Let's say by year 3, year 4, we're looking to initiate those conversations. But I think the production will be there. Keldrick Falk, we could talk ourselves into that here as well. I think this is a guy that's just kind of, the production fall off isn't quite there, right? 9 to 2. You kind of look at the hurries, you look at like the pass rush win rate and all that kind of stuff that isn't necessarily in front of us now. Um, for me, I think the conversation for me would probably be between like Akeem Mesidor and maybe Emmanuel Warren or a wide receiver. I think you could talk me into those three positions right now. What would be more important to this team, right? So one of the things I can say that I like about Emmanuel is obviously you have the size profile with them, and I kind of like having at least one of the safeties in that like 200 pound territory, so you don't really have to worry about a guy that, as long as the technique is right, will fall off of people and all of those kind of things. But I do like AJ Halsey, who would potentially be there in a second for us. Should be anyways. And also, like, I don't like. There's other names, Bud Clark. I've seen. I gotta get a little bit more familiar with this safety class. Obviously, like the first 4 or 5 names I know here. I've seen Michael Taft in some recent. Lorenzo Styles obviously had the speed piece, but I think you're talking about definitely late round picks. I don't know who I'd be most comfortable with. Like outside of these next three guys, the next person I probably lock in on is Bud Clark, but I think he's in that third round territory. The sleeper at 16 could be Vega, the guard from Penn State. Yeah, I think that depends on free agency more than anything else, because if we bring an AVT or somebody like that back, I don't think you need to pick him up there, because I think you could probably get what's the guard I'm thinking of? Emmanuel Pregnon. I think you could probably pull him in, and then you feel pretty good there. Or even if you want to get creative and take like a Caleb Lamu or somebody like that and try to plug him in on the interior, I think you can figure out a way to kind of make that work. So like here's the plan. Here's what I'm trying to think through for us. Okay, sorry, I was looking at some stuff on the back end. So I don't think I want to go cornerback here. We definitely don't need a tackle. If we wanted to go guard, which I think I wouldn't do. Oh, by the way, sorry, that's what I was thinking of. The guard that you were talking about went early. Yeah, Vega went to the Bucks right before us. Um, if Pregnon isn't there in the second, then I think you end up just waiting for a little bit, or you look to do one of the tackle converts. But so maybe that ends up being the way we tackle the interior, right? We know we're going to get a free agent pick of some kind, whether we return Simpson or AVT, and then through free agency, maybe it's another pickup, or maybe we end up going the draft route. And if you go the draft route, I think we're in the territory now to where you can say, I don't need to invest the early pick. I can make sure that I find a day three guy that I really, really like, unless there's just a value that I can't pass up. Again, like maybe Pregnon being there at the top of the second. So we're not going to go linebacker. We're not worried about tackle. I'm not going to do cornerback here. So I think the question really is anybody sold enough on any wide receiver at 16? Or do we consider just this being a conversation between Akeem Mesidor, unless we feel like there's a better fit, and Emmanuel? And I think if we went Akeem Mesidor, then at the top of the second for the safeties, that means you could probably still get AJ Halsey. You might even be able to get him at 44, right? But I'm trying to think of the like wide receiver conversation. I think it's safe to say that Jets are going to bring back AVT or Simpson. I'd hope so. I'd like to see one of those two guys, right? I would re-sign Simpson though, and then take a guard in the fifth. Yeah, I don't think that's a bad approach. I think you can get a Chris Bell or Benson later on. I like all the others though. Safety is deep too. Yeah, like what gives us the most bang for the buck, right? So Caleb, like let's say we truly feel Caleb Banks is the best interior guy and we want to beef that up. I don't think he ends up I don't think he ends up getting enough play time over a Sweat and over a Jawan Briggs. I guess it depends on how we deploy Briggs. Specifically, I think we're not necessarily going to play around with moving Sweat off of nose tackle. But if Briggs ends up being more of kind of like a defensive end in a 3-4 front, then that means Caleb Banks has a little bit more runway to help eat up those snaps. But then I would almost say like I don't need this high of an investment for someone that let's say Sweat gets, I don't know, let's say there's 1,000 snaps to be had on the interior. Sweat gets maybe like 40% of those. Caleb Banks would get like 20%, and the other 40 that's out there would just be kind of rotational between like Jawan Briggs bouncing in and someone like a Mesidor that maybe also goes into the interior or something. I think for me, we end up locking in Akeem Mesidor, who I think is going to be the best edge presence option for us here. He's going to be an older guy, but if he's productive, I don't think you end up just blowing past the conversations on that second contract. He's also older, by the way, because there is a little bit of injury history with him. There's also him just not playing as much. So, like, he's older, but he's also not coming with, like, the wear and tear, right? He just took a little bit more of an extended path, if I recall off the top of my head, between him coming from, was it D3 territory, something like that? But when you look at a lot of his games, it was Mesidor for the most part. I won't say for the most part, but it was Mesidor for a good chunk that they were actually trying to game plan around. I think we take Mesidor. I think you can do the same things in practice with Mesidor that you can do with Bane. I think there'll be a little bit of drop off in the space of like edge setting and stuff like that. But these are two guys that's kind of cut from the same cloth when it comes to the insane compete mentality, when it comes to the drive and the laser focus out there on the field. I think we're going to roll with Mesidor. I think we can still get ourselves a really good safety in the second if we still feel like that's a need. And I still feel like we can address either wide receiver or we can kind of bridge and go a different route. So I'm not going to worry about the age necessarily here. We're going to go Akeem Mesidor. How about Emmanuel if Halsey is gone? Both the D. I don't think Emmanuel is going to make it to the second, but if he's there, yeah, 100%. Hey DKB, I watched the video. This is my first time watching that. Hey, appreciate you, Bruno, my guy. Welcome in. I know I see you in the videos all the time, so I'm glad I was able to find some kind of slot here for some of you guys to catch me in person. He looked better than Bane at times, no doubt, no doubt. Bruno, looks like you already have friends in the community, so that's fire. Let's take a look. How did the things play out? So Jordan Tyson goes right after us. Like, it's a miss, but it's not, because that how often he's not available is scary to me. CJ Allen, we didn't really need to worry about linebacker again. Keldrick Falk goes to the Panthers. Cowboys traded for Banks. That's fine. Jermod McCoy, Steelers, that could be an awesome pickup for them. Again, I think really for him, it's just a matter of is he going to see the field from, week one. Monroe Freeling, I imagined he was probably going to keep rising in the first round. So from what I've seen, there's probably like top 15 buzz with him. Avion Terrell, good press guy. He would have been strong consideration at the top of the second. Don't need to worry about tackle. Kind of like I thought, Emmanuel doesn't make it to the second. He goes to the Bears. We don't really need, so like the Sweat trade, I think takes the priority off of needing to hope like a Caden McDonald or a Peter Woods or like some of these guys drop. So like that stuff I don't really worry about. Denzel Boston, stuff like that sucks to see. Like if he somehow slipped to the second, I think you're running to the podium, right? Chiefs take a flyer on TJ Parker, who had a down year. Omar Cooper finally makes it into the first. And then Cassius Howe, Colton Hood goes off the board. So where are we at now, right? To recap, we have picked up the best linebacker in the class. We have picked up one of the best edge rushers in the class. And you can argue he's who would have came before him? Bailey, Mesidor, and Arvell Reese, if you think he is going to be a better pass rusher. So I like where we're at here. We got an LB1, not only just from the draft ranking perspective, but as a number one linebacker within our unit immediately. You bring Akeem Mesidor, who's going to replace Jermaine Johnson. And you're probably getting a better prospect again as an older guy. And now that I think about it, the Jermaine Johnson like age pieces like similar enough if you want to kind of gauge what's happening there. And now we have again a tackle that we don't need to worry about. I can't remember. Caden Proctor's maybe a guy to move inside, but like I'm still not necessarily there about guard just yet. But we have Casey Concepcion. I like this guy, especially even after seeing more of the story around him with the stuttering and everything and just how he goes about handling himself in his business. There's one thing about like when people talk about building out like a room, and in this case, I'm talking about wide receiver, but you say you don't want to have the same kind of traits or like the skill set within that room. But I also think there's a world where you can definitely make that work. Like imagine having 2 or 3 Garrett Wilson prospects just in terms of the ability to immediately get open. Like that's something every team would die and want to make sure that they can grab. So like I am perfectly fine starting to have the wide receiver conversation here. So I think he would be just the first option as I'm kind of running through the list here. Emmanuel Pregnon, I think you can kind of start having this conversation. Again, defensive tackles, I don't see as too much of a need just because it really just depends on how we expect the snap counts to break down for T'Vondre Sweat and Jawan Briggs. We can't forget about Harrison Phillips, so he's still going to kind of play that pseudo edge role. So what does that look like? In a general 3-4, we're going to have T'Vondre Sweat, Harrison Phillips, and I guess Jawan Briggs on the line of scrimmage. If we break it out into more of an even front, you're going to have Phillips and Briggs on the edge. You're going to have Sweat and I guess for now, like who did I say is on the edge? It's going to be Phillips. It's going to be Jawan Briggs. Then you're going to have Sweat on the inside with like a Peyton Page. Um, mm, yeah, maybe more of a priority, but I think we can have that conversation again at 44. We don't need the edge as much anymore. I think D'Angelo Pons essentially becomes your, he's either going to become your, I guess technically you look at him as a more physical version of like Michael Carter II. But essentially he would either replace Jarvis Brownlee or again he becomes more physical MC2. I don't know. Let's see. Long live the guy. What? Long live the. I can't talk. Love the live. You guys are A-OK. I got to go to work. I'll be in Discord annoying you later. Have a great day. My guy, I appreciate you coming through. I like DKB as fair takes. He isn't wishy-washy like some of the other. Yeah, I try to have some kind of logical reasoning. Ruben Reland does his own research, never a parody. Yeah, appreciate that. Sonny Styles is available at 33 according to that app. They need to do better. Wait, are we at 33? You might have been looking at Caden Proctor. I don't think I ever seen him at 33, but if so, yeah, they need to fix that immediately. Good afternoon. I'm trading down from the first and second pick. Yeah, I feel like I say this every draft over the last 3 or 4 years. I like the idea of a trade down and maybe that's just because I don't have a super strong conviction over someone at the slot that we're in. But again, and this is without actually doing my full breakdown of Sonny Styles, I do think that I'm getting to that point where like I'm just convinced Sonny Styles will be the next version of any top linebacker that you want to name, going back the last decade or so. I got you. Styles over Reese, yes. Thoughts on us not giving Mechie the restricted free agent tender today? I think this is a situation where you look at Adonai and you say, okay, he brings legendary measurables, and the wide receiver held him back, right? In terms of there's a lot of stuff on tape where he could have been targeted, could have made great plays, didn't make them. Obviously, a ton of drops there as well. But then you look at Mechie and you say, okay, not legendary traits, right? Maybe he's above average in some departments like speed and such, good route runner, veteran, picked up on the playbook well, but the hands, he made the touchdown plays, right, when he needed to make them, but overall he didn't bring a consistent impact to the offense. So maybe they will look at him as more of a candidate to like we can probably find a similar enough production from another similar enough type of player, right? I would like to get at least 6 top 2 round picks from this draft. We currently have 4. Yeah, I think we would all love that. It's hard not to get greedy once you start having this war chest like that. And then you end up talking yourself out of also just getting great players where you're going to get them, considering we'll probably have the same conversation next year with all the picks that we have. What's the possibility of any Ivy League players being drafted? I never know, right? Like I was going to say the NAACP. I'm an idiot. But the Ivy League and the HBCU candidates, like I'm always kind of all over the place on what happens with them. Another new member, 2 on the channel today from this stream. I appreciate you guys a lot. I know there's not necessarily a lot going on with the memberships just yet, but That takes us to three, which is fire. And as that grows, definitely things will end up becoming much, much more consistent, and I'll be able to hone in on exactly all the things that I can offer. But much love, much appreciated. I like Mechie even with some drops. He knows how to get up and he will be cheap. I think Mechie will return to us, hopefully. I'm definitely hoping he does, anyways, because I do like the way that he goes about his business. All the reports about him being in there early, him being on the jugs machine consistent, like all that kind of stuff. Even if he never produces, that's the kind of stuff that really matters when you want to talk about insulating a team within like a culture and a way that we go about business and kind of like implementing a process. Are any players on the block at this stage of the draft? Yeah, like if you want to go Bailey, Will McDonald to me is on the trade block. But I think it's still dependent on like you have to at least get a second round pick for him back. Let me run through this because I do know I need to try to get back to trying to do some things that actually pay the bills at a high rate. So I don't think I'm going to worry about guard here. KC Concepcion is definitely on my radar. I don't think I need to worry about DT here just yet. And we took edge. So I think the conversation really becomes, do we want to prioritize wide receiver? Because that's going to be, I think it's easier to find a path to playing time in the wide receiver room than it'll be in the cornerback room. Especially with like the hard on it seems like the staff has for trying to acquire every cornerback they can and seeing what works and what doesn't. Ty Simpson is here. Do you have that conversation? I don't necessarily want to have the quarterback conversation in this draft. I never intended that I was going to. I think I'm locked in on the fact that unless something crazy happens, I'm not taking a quarterback until day 3. That's just kind of where I'm at. So I think the conversation here becomes, is it cornerback or is it wide receiver? And then do we have a preference somewhere? For me, they are showing the next best wide receivers are KC, Chris Bell. I have been looking at Jeremy Bernard a little bit more lately, and I think he's kind of hitting that super underrated territory. But I also really love Malachi Fields. And since we don't have the 3rd round pick, I just don't happen to think that we're going to actually see him available to us. But I love the physicality. I talked about this when I linked up with my guy Danger. And so we'll see what happens there. But I love the idea of having size right now in the wide receiver room. I just want somebody that can kind of help be a bully out there on the field and will bring us kind of that contested catch ability. And so maybe this is where we start looking at, like, do we lean more towards Chris Bell, or do we say just make the quarterback's job as easy as possible? And to that means you have somebody that can get open extremely quick and you don't have to worry about even the contested catch necessarily. I think what we do here is, I also talked about safety, right? Who still happens to be there, by the way. So Halsey is still there. He'll probably still be there with our next pick. I think what we do here, oh my God, Jacob Rodriguez is still here. Like, as much as I love Sonny Styles, I think they're probably, like, if I worked through it in my thought process, I think I could have said, okay, then maybe we do end up just deciding to go like Arvell Reese now, or maybe it's Ruben Bain, right? Like, I guess those would be the 2 guys if I excluded Sonny. You take one of those 2, you miss out on Sonny, but then we still get, well, I guess you don't need Akeem Mesidor in that situation even more. So then what happens? So if I didn't go Sonny and I went, let's say, Ruben Bain, then obviously Sonny gets picked up at some point before 16. Let's say that pushes somebody down, and that's probably like Vega, the guard. So then maybe we go him. If he's not there, then maybe like Emmanuel or Avion Terrell ends up becoming that guy. And then now, instead of talking about taking, now this would be the conversation of I'm running to the podium with this pick to get Jacob Rodriguez in, which I would honestly, I would probably still strongly consider taking him now anyways. You need as many guys that can make plays on the ball as possible. Let me catch up in the chat real quick because I got lost in the sauce somewhere. Hold Okay, so we talked about that. We had the new member that was fire, much appreciated. Talked about Mechie and what he could bring. We talked about Will McDonald. Whoops. Yeah, worth $1 million, but I don't know. Maybe they wanted non-guaranteed. Yeah, that could be the case. I think he'd be worth it though. That's a drop in the bucket for us. Sean Bennett, you're doing a great job, brother. Keep it up. Hey, much love, much love. Because when I hear myself talk, when I go back and look at my lives, sometimes to kind of get my thought processes versus when I hear like the Connor Rogers of the world and like even our own guys, our Mats and stuff that are out there. I'm like, what the hell am I talking about? Will McDonald will be a beast in the new scheme, and Dunbar coaching him up. Yeah, we can't forget about that factor, right? I assume anybody that's going to be on the defensive line, current and future, huge boost there. I hope so. He'll need to get paid though, and we drafted 2 front 7 guys. Yes, I want Drew Allar. I might have got mixed up in this piece, Dane. I'm sure this will hit me again in a minute, but you're saying we drafted the 2 front 7s and Sonny and Akeem. And okay, so Will McDonald, yeah, the beneficiary of that. I got you. I got there. Drew Allar. I don't know where I'm at with the quarterbacks, right? If I'm thinking day 3, right now, everything that I've seen has really just been honed in on Talon. But when I can get to the quarterbacks, I'll probably figure out who exactly I'm getting there with. Taylor Green and wide receiver Chris Brazel are 2 of my targets. I wouldn't be mad at that, right? I think you can make an argument for stuff like that working out. Penn State fan here, that would be sweet. Danger, my guy, you're doing too much on this draft for me or this live. 5 memberships gifted. I don't know if it tells me anywhere who these are actually gifted to. Is that like an integration thing or something I've seen somewhere? Maybe it tells me on the YouTube side. Nonetheless, though, Danger, you're a king, my guy. A gentleman and a true scholar. Chris Brazel, 6'2". He's 6'5", and he's fast. He catches everything. I always get Stephen Hill like nostalgia and depression. But yeah, maybe when I can actually take a look at him for sure. Is Chris Brazel the guy that got injured? I talked about this on a video and I never went back to go and find out who I was thinking of. I thought it was Chris Bell. Maybe it's Chris Brazel. One of these tall, fast guys got injured that ends up being like a good contested catch guy. And I thought it was something significant. I wouldn't mind using our 44th pick on Allar. Yeah, I don't know if I'm there. Fire contribution, gifted memberships. Congratulations to everyone. Yeah, absolutely. Again, thank you very much, Chris. Thank you very much, Danger. That sounds like a plan. Yes, sir. I am from Jersey, born in Somersville, came up in Atlantic City, and now I'm on the West Coast. Bell got hurt. Okay. Bell. Oh, Chris Bell. Got you. Yeah, I'm surprised like he's still way up here, right? That's what was throwing me off. So, okay. Guys, if I did something crazy here, because I do probably need to wrap up in like 12 at the latest. If I did something crazy here, would anybody kill me if I did say Jacob Rodriguez is the guy? Sonny Styles, our Mike linebacker. Jacob Rodriguez, also, by the way, really killer combine for himself from an athletic standpoint. There was question marks around that. You get another guy with some decent size, has speed and stuff, but he specifically brings you playmaking ability, proven playmaking ability. Not only in pass coverage, but forced fumbles, pass breakups, the whole 9 yards. Would that be insane to think that maybe we put Sherwood on the trade block, or maybe he ends up just being, one of the Sam or line, backers for us now, but it's Sonny and Jacob Rodriguez manning the middle with Sherwood on one of the ends and whoever we pick up in free agency? And then we'll help. Yeah, Reich would probably kill me, but I'm going to help him out at 44, maybe. Or maybe the free agency, we focus on that and he knows he like gets in where he fits in. Is that an insane concept? and this is what I meant, right? I don't mean to be radical like this on this particular draft, but I think that is a legitimate conversation for a team that was able to do like jack shit on defense. If you're not drafting Reese, why not make him the will linebacker and make McDonald the Mike? There's no way in hell there's no way McDonald can be the Mike linebacker. I just don't think one, he has the leadership skills for that particular role, or really the vocalness. And two, I just don't think the profile really fits in there really, really good. Damn, I didn't think that this would be like a legitimate thing that happened. I was almost sure that Rodriguez would probably drop there. You have two highly instinctual guys. Sonny Styles can make the plays that should be there and can make some of the ones he shouldn't have any business to do. But like Jacob Rodriguez is consistently going to get you stuff that you just can't logically see happening a lot. I think, because what am I going to do on offense? On offense, I'm essentially just going to take a wide receiver since I'm skipping guard right now, and I can still pick up a good guy at 44. Would having Rodriguez make more of an impact than taking Halsey, for example, or taking a cornerback who's going to need to fight for time? God, I think this is where I'm at, guys. I think this is the plan. I'm taking Jacob Rodriguez. I have two legitimate playmakers now. The middle of the field should essentially be a no-fly zone. I have Akeem Mesidor that's going to make sure our pass rush is still existent. And then let's see what happened real quick. So Max Eonshore goes to the Cards for their trench play, more help on the offense for LaFleur. Proctor, this is essentially Salah's Mekhi Becton. Pregnon goes to the Raiders. They need to build that front in front of, their offensive line is horrific. They need to make sure Mendoza can actually see the day of light to pass. Defensive tackle goes, we don't need to worry about it. Caleb Lamu goes. Chris Bell does go with his ACL. Kristen Miller, we didn't need to worry about DT necessarily. We could have almost got Concepcion, which would have been nice. But then Mason Thomas, Brandon Cisse. Okay, so we are left now. Zion Young ends up being here. You can continue to reinforce the trenches. I don't think that is necessarily a bad plan either. Ty Simpson is still here. I'm sure that would be the pick for most people, not for this guy. D'Angelo Pons is there, and I do think he brings a lot of stuff that I really like. I just don't love the profile. I think he could probably overcome it with the mentality that he has, but I feel like the foresight vision I have on him is it'll essentially be he either picks up an injury at some point and, knock on wood for him. But if he picks up an injury at some point and some of that athleticism gets sapped and you're already coming in at it a smaller size and Aaron Glenn's Bill Parcells history and all that, I just can't see that necessarily happening. Cornerback, you can talk yourself into if you will still want to talk about trying to make plays, but then that's the reason why I ended up going with Sonny Styles and Jacob Rodriguez, and they're going to be the guys that have more of an option to be able to make that stuff happen. I think we lock in here. So this is where we just have the conversation about wide receiver. Tight end isn't going to happen for me right now, but let's have the wide receiver conversation. Jeremy Bernard it took tackle and tight end. Here we go. Jeremy Bernard, Skylar Bell, Chris Brazel. I've seen that get shouted out. Size, speed. What else is on here? I don't care about that piece. Size, speed. He's played out the snap minimal, so basically he's an X receiver for you. 81 for 1,000. He's really done nothing in 2024, and it doesn't look like it's due to injury. 2023, he hit the scene and did well. Yeah, he could be a guy. Though, so like the thing off the top of my head really about Brazo is just that Tennessee offense is really kind of gimmicky. It's almost like a kind of like a Chip Kelly-esque experience there. And I don't mean that to be in like a disrespectful way to Tennessee's offense. But like give Kelly his respect too. His college offense he was gassing people because it was just being able to rip up and down the field all game. Skylar Bell is a name that I know is also rising. He's going to bring a bit of that size, not the Chris Brazel experience, but he's a guy that's continuously progressed and done well. Jeremy Bernard is the name that I most consistently hear. Like people have underrated him. And that he's borderline like a first round prospect right now, right? And he's continuing to rise as people dive in. And that Alabama experience to me matters. And he doesn't really have as much variance. Obviously, pretty good target counts as well. So this would be a conversation to me between like these three. And specifically, I think Chris Brazel separates just because of the profile from these two. But because he's gimmicky, I would almost say lean more towards Bernard or Skylar Bell. Alabama had Simpson, so then that conversation really becomes more of kind of how you judge Simpson's skills during that season. Connecticut. Who was throwing the ball in Connecticut? Joe Fagano. He was a rising name that I can recall, and I know he was in the East-West Shrine Bowl, which doesn't necessarily speak to how highly, per se, the league is thinking of him. I would say I end up rolling with Bernard as a guy that's going to make sure he can kind of get open and just make the plays there that are supposed to be made. And so if I'm drafting Bernard, it's not the X guy that I necessarily want right now because I don't want to reach for Malachi Fields. And Chris Brazel, like when I can actually look at him, maybe I can talk myself into that. But Bernard would essentially be your John Mechie upgrade. And so then maybe he can learn a bit from Garrett Wilson and you can kind of have them exchange between, being on the outside, being out of the slot, kind of playing the flanker role and stuff like that. I think that ends up being the case. Jeremy Bernard's going to be the move here. Zion Young, yeah. I think you can roll the dice again later on, though. Styles has been talking up Mike linebacker 100%. Would consider Price at running back also. Jadarian Price is nice. I don't think, again, resource management wise, it makes sense to pick him up. I don't even know if I would take a running back in this draft right now, honestly. I haven't figured out how I want to play that yet because Brees is going to be here as of now, just the way I think about it. But then, yeah, Braylon coming off of the injury, I still feel really good about Isaiah Davis. But you want somebody in rotation. I just don't know if we need to spend a draft pick on it per se. I'm not surprised at the grades, right? Obviously, they still kind of like Sonny Styles, but again, bit of a reach. Akeem Mesidor, I think, will give us the Ruben Bain experience and how their development paths in the NFL change. We'll happen to see. But I think really if Akeem Mesidor was 22 and not, borderline 25, then I think we're not even talking about him being available at 16. Jacob Rodriguez to double down at linebacker, I can see why that would be a problem. And really, I talked myself into that one, but I still absolutely love it, and I don't think I'd have any regrets. And then Jeremy Bernard, I think, is a really good pickup for us with where we're at. And then ultimately, screw the PFF grades because it's me making these drafts. And these are the guys that, the way I'm talking to you guys is the way I would imagine it'd be more pristine, right? But this would be the vision that I'm selling to Woody Johnson, in that I don't have question marks about how I see these guys coming in here year one and impacting this defense. And in Bernard's case, year one, coming in and pairing up with Garrett Wilson to make, Jacoby Brissett's life easier. We'll see. I wish I had more time to kind of break this down and get you guys' thoughts and everything, but I'm sure I'll probably have, I don't know, if I don't post a short or something, which I don't really break out shorts from this, but I'll at least kind of have the visual from this about how I attack things. And yeah, we'll take it from there. But I appreciate you guys kicking it with me. This was super awesome, between the memberships, between Dane and guys donating. Wasn't necessary whatsoever. The gifted memberships, much love to everyone. But I'm looking forward to this. I missed this. I do like being able to do the lives with you guys. I got to find some more times to where it can be a little bit more interactive and whatnot. But this was fun. As always, it was a fun exercise for me to go through again post-combine. I'll probably extend this out. And so like the next live will probably be 4 rounds deep, etc. So we'll see. But let me know what you guys think. I appreciate it. And I'll catch you guys again here. Peace.